Okay, panel is full, all right. This is the panel discussion, or some of you would like to call it a round table. And this is where they will be discussing, of course, the new R's of plastics circularity. Basically, it's the 5 new R's: reduce, reuse, recycle, recover, and replace. Now, allow me to introduce to you our very distinguished panel. First up, gentlemen and ladies, perhaps when I introduce you, you could just raise your hand for those of our guests who have not seen you today, earlier, all right? Some of them have been speaking earlier on, okay? First up, we have from, well, the Undersecretary of Eco-Innovation Division. It's Puan Hartini Binti Muhammad Nasir. There she is. Give her a big hand, please, everybody. MPMA, that's Malaysian Plastic Manufacturers Association, Sustainability Chair. You heard her speak just now. Is CYW. There she is. Nirmalah Thurai, Nestle Malaysia Berhad's Executive Director, Group Corporate Affairs. You also heard her speak just now. Just raise your hand. Okay, there we are. Woodring, Ocean Recovery Alliance, founder and MD. There he is. Thank you. Dr. Zhang, the Dow Chemicals Company, Asia Pacific Sustainability Leader for Packaging and Specialty Plastics. We also have Chris Oestereich, Circular Design Lab founder and MD. There he is. And to moderate, ladies and gentlemen, this session, it is my pleasure and honor to introduce to you the former FMM Sustainability Chair, that's Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers. Please give a nice warm welcome to Puan Sri Maimon Arif Patail. Okay, Puan Sri, it's over to you.
Thank you so much. If you can't hear me, please raise your hand, because I'm having a very bad flu, so I'm not sure whether I'm talking too loud or talking too low. Okay, so in the last 2 days, we've heard that plastic, in a sense, it's a great human invention, but it is also the victim of its own success. And like anything that is great in life, you have to take it in moderation. Otherwise, it kills you, or you get sick out of it.
You're absolutely right, Puan Sri. Can I just interrupt? I forgot to introduce one more person on the panel. That's Thomas Schuldt, WWF Malaysia Regional Coordinator. My apologies. Puan Sri, please carry on.
Okay, so that was a false start. So let's start again. So as I was saying, that plastic is a victim of its own success, in a sense. And we are where we are to a certain extent because of that. So hearing from different aspects of it, it is a systemic issue. And as any systemic issue, it's complicated. So we hear some great initiatives going along, and we hear about some pact going along, but the pressure is here. And I like what Chris said just now. We are sinking in plastic in Asia. It's real. So short term, long term. Okay, long term, we have the pact that we hopefully could look at. Short term, and also looking at the, what do you call this? The Malaysian plastic blueprint. We've got certain milestones. First in, how are we against the milestone? Can I ask Puan Hartini that? Are we within the timeline in your milestones? Where are we?
Hello. Thank you, Puan Sri Moderator. Now, I'm from Mestek, and we have introduced the Malaysian roadmap towards zero single-use plastic, 2018-2030. So now we are still in the phase 1. Phase 1 is focusing on plastic bag and also straw. Now we are trying to get all the states to charge the polluter charge to the consumers. And also, we are also working on the plastic bag, like Puan mentioned just now, and also to identify plastic that is called problematic plastic that cannot be recycled, but hopefully can be replaced by a compostable, that can be compostable. So that's
So, a short yes or no. Are we on track?
yes, we are on track.
That sounds wonderful. We are on track. Because I think one of the things that in Malaysia, we always have distrust of whatever is being said. So are we on track? Can I just ask Thomas from WWF, are we on track?
Yes, I think we're doing great. We're trying to engage all the stakeholders right now. At the same time, there is a lot of work, like you're already mentioning. So I think we've had a great start, and now we just need to make sure that we keep up the great momentum, bring together all the different stakeholders from the government, from the companies, and also from the civil society in order to achieve our goals that we set to ourselves.
So there you are, from two sides of the divide, we are on track. So that's a good news for Malaysia. Talking about, I hear CY is saying that, you know, the issue really is not from the manufacturer. The issue doesn't start in the factory. As it gets out of the factory, that's where our biggest issue is. So how do we get the consumers? Changing consumers' mindset is the most difficult. How do we get them to be on track, to be on board on this? Anyone who would like to tackle this first? What's the best way? And have we seen any place where it is successful?
I can start with something. I think you heard a little bit about EPR earlier, which is extended producer responsibility, where the companies pay something, and often that's legislated. That can work. That's the stick. So you either need the stick or the carrot. And if you have both, then you're going to probably move faster. Carrot being a reward program, a deposit program, a rebate program. It doesn't have to be just for plastic bottles, which is what most of the world does. It can be for shoelaces. It could be for anything that you want, if you as a retailer or a brand wants to get your material back. The next question is that going to be legislated or is it going to be voluntary? And there are some great examples of voluntary bring-back programs which get consumers engaged in that company and bringing back those materials. So that is the cost of operation that the companies maybe need to be involved with. And that's up to them whether they take that approach or wait for legislation to force the whole market to go at the same time in the same way. So hopefully there's some leaders out there that can show voluntarism, that with the reward program, it can really get people bringing the material back in for the recyclers to use it in a bigger volume. But without one of those two factors, I think it's a challenge.
Add on that?
Yes, please. Feel free.
Okay, all right. We keep asking how consumer can change their behavior. I think sometimes we also need to think about how can we help them and change behavior. What do they need? We have done consumer survey year over year to understand what's their expectation about packaging. And the number one is always cost. And then functionality, provided the performance of that packaging. And then there are all kinds of demand, like recyclability, some other stuff. So we still need to meet the consumer demand on cost and the performance. And also through many programs we have done, we learned in order to have a successful change behavior or successful program, we need to make it convenient to consumer. if they just throw their trash out on the street or put it in their recycling bin without any sortation today, and you ask them tomorrow to take all the trash to 10 kilometers away and sort it into 14 different bins, very inconvenient for them, they won't do it. They won't change their behavior. So you have to design a program as convenient as possible and also pair with the existing recycling infrastructure system so that consumer, they will change their behavior step by step. And this is not a dramatic change. And this will ensure a higher success rate.
Yes, please, too.
Okay, so in addition, it also makes sense to create awareness right from the beginning on in people. So when kids go to school, I remember being from Germany, we had an elementary school education about how to separate our waste into the different bins. The advantage there was that the system was already established. But at the same time, it was also teaching us what to do and how to do it right. So I think what the WWF, for example, is doing, and many of the companies too, they work together with schools, Nestle and Tetra Pak, for example, all over the world in order to add to the curriculum how to do better waste segregation, how to contribute to the recycling. So starting with the kids, and then the kids often take it home, tell their parents. There are some great success stories that we can have too.
And also to add to that, I mentioned earlier that it's important to also assist and support recycling initiatives. So there is an industry pact of 10 companies in addition to the plastic pact who are also looking at ways to collect. But doing that is not enough if we don't have education. We are now testing some pilot projects with some suppliers. So for instance, we have one partner who will go in and teach communities to separate, provide bins, and incentivize them to do separate. So this is a pilot project, and if projects like this can take off, we are very keen to expand because it's only by educating people in a simple way that this can be meaningful. The other means that we have, and it's also something that we are working on, we're actually working on some communication programs where we can, you saw that little video just now where we teach children to recycle. We're also working on some programs where we will educate the average housewife or the household how to separate and recycle their packaging. All still in early stages, but if these ideas can work and other organizations come in, I believe we can build traction to help to educate consumers. I think it's unrealistic just to expect the government to do everything. I think all of us have a role to play. Of course, we are limited sometimes also by our own resources, but if everyone plays a part, I believe we can make a change.
Yes.
Add one thought for the long term. I've been involved with a program where we looked at creating a sustainability program for grade schools. And so we would do like gardening at the school, composting, the kids would separate their wastes, and then they would be involved with every stage of that, and then they would take that and put it into the programs in the classes. So that people that are my age, you tend to be set in your ways, but we catch kids from 5 years old and just make it normal so that they have a different mindset growing up. That will take a long time for that to hit to where it really changes society. But by the time it does, I mean, it's going to be a complete shift if we do that right. So for the long term, I think that's something we can really make a big difference with.
So it sounded like long term, we have got a plan in hand. Short term, what do we do in the short term?
We will be having a National Environment Day on the 19th of this month, organized by Department of Environment. And then we will have a campaign, one-man campaign, until the 30th of October on the campaign named Campaign Hindari Plastik Sekali Guna. It means a campaign to avoid the use of single-use plastic. So our agencies, Ya Hijau, is going to schools and they teach the students how to segregate waste. They call the NGOs. I think some of the NGOs, WWF and also Reef Check is also involved in that campaign. And at Putrajaya, we want Putrajaya to be free from plastic. So on the 25th of this month, we will have our Chief Secretary of Malaysia, Tan Sri Ismail, will be launching the campaign on the Pasar Tani, Precinct 2. So we will educate people to bring their own bag and also no straw on that day. And also there is some activities that we call Senviro, and we call so Myco, the composter company, and also GPSP and all solid waste management department. So that's the short-term campaign that we are having now.
Great. So looks like we are on track. We are going to go there. So we talk about changing of consumer habits, but I'm also intrigued by what Doug was saying, that there are more than 40,000 types of plastics out there, and most of it may not be compostable, or they may not be able to recyclable. So I like that your question just now about this putting some rules on plastic. So I'd like to hear some thoughts about this from Thurai.
The plastics, okay, there are certain plastics that is not safe or not recyclable. So these would have been governed by the FDAs or the local Food and Drug Administration. So of course, at this moment, I would say most of the plastics that is not safe would have been out from the system. But of course, there will be some people that are still using, because we really don't have a regulatory to check on this yet. So again, it is very much a self-governing issue. Us as a producer and with our customer, the brand owners, we will know what should be used. Of course, safety, like Ms. Nirmalah say, is the paramount importance, whether it is in food packaging or non-food packaging. So that, as a responsible suppliers, we will take care of that. It is very much a self-regulatory thing, but we should be professional enough to advise what should be used for what application. But on this regulatory, it is very much, I would say it's not a problem at this moment, because whatever plastics that we have right now, it's safe. The dangerous plastics has long gone from the system, because it's mandated by, for example, the heavy metal requirements and all that. So those plastics that cannot comply has long gone. Right now, the urgent matters is looking at the recyclability of the plastics that you use, the reusable nature, okay, and the compostable nature, like we mentioned again and again. These three things will guide us to the future of plastics. Basically, all plastics material has to fall either in one of these, and then you look at your application.
So is that 40,000 among those recyclable, reusable, and compostable, or apart from that, the 40,000 you're talking about, Doug?
Han might also be. I think the main point is that there's 7 main categories of plastics, and there's variations within those, different colors, but the challenge is standardizing the 7 families. So if the brands who are packaging can reduce the number of types on one type of package, and they're all the same family of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it makes it easier for the recycler to make use of that. So there's many arguments that we should reduce those, maybe not the families, but reduce the way, the variants within the packaging themselves. That's a decision that the brands sometimes, you know, it's challenging because you're trying to design and be unique and you want your product to look good and be differentiated among the others. And this is maybe something that the industry groups who are in these larger multinationals can come to agreement. I think that's already starting to happen, that the soap dishes and things will be standardized. I think almost all plastics could actually be recycled. It's the system in the cities and the towns that doesn't allow you to recover them easily, which makes it the recycling the challenge. And that's a structural and a social challenge that is really almost beyond the technological challenges.
I want to add, there are a lot of different types of plastic on the market. The reason why we have so many different types of plastic because they provide a different functionality. Some give you stiffness, some give you oxygen barrier, some give you moisture barrier, and that's the beauty of a plastic. You can engineer it into different function, and that's why plastic can deliver more with less. But this causes huge confusion to the consumer when they try to recycle plastic. I believe a majority of people on the world, and they want to do things. They want to do good things. They want to recycle plastic, but they don't know how to do it. And for average person, there's no way they have the knowledge to tell if this polymer is a polyethylene or polypropylene or multi-layer material or some different type of a polymer. And this is also tied to the first question about education. Change behavior. If we want to change their behavior, we need to give them a clear instruction. And many people think that the triangle, the 7 different code triangle on plastic, it tells you whether this plastic is recyclable or not. Number 1 is recyclable, number 7 is not recyclable, which is not true. So when people first develop that 7 different numbers, that triangle, this is only used to identify the resin. It's called the resin identification code. It does not mean whether this plastic is recyclable or not. That's why Dow and many other companies in the US, we start a new organization, new group called How to Recycle Label, and Nestle is one of the member. So now in the US, if you purchase some packaged product, you will see many of them, they carry this How to Recycle label. And it's a very simple and concise label, tell consumer if this packaging can be recycled and how to recycle it. Should you put it into your recycling bin, or should you clean this package and dry it and bring it to a store and do a store drop-off? So this is very important. No matter how many type of material you have, if you give a consumer a clear instruction and also create an outlet for those materials, they can all be recycled.
So whose role is it to put all those information out there? Is it the plastic manufacturer, or is it the brand manufacturer? Is it mandatory by the government? Whose role should that be?
It's everybody's responsibility, and this is a value chain collaboration. We need a brand owner to put in the logo on the package, and we need some organization to standardize it, and also we need the whole industry, the whole value chain to create this recycling system.
The trouble with everybody is responsible for it is nobody will be accountable for it. So how do we get to there?
I think to follow on with what Dr. Han said, by the middle of next year, our target is by the middle of next year, every single one of the packs, or at least by Q3 next year, every single one of our packs will carry recycling information. We have a simplified format that we have adopted. And what is different about this is when we started this exercise, different brands are managed by different people, different categories have different guidelines. So the challenge to the team was we want one set of guidelines that we use across all packaging. Now, Nestle is the biggest food manufacturer in Malaysia. And I think if we start, that will be a very positive direction. So if we tell you that our cup noodles are recyclable, people have no idea how to do it. We have a simple format, which we will introduce, where we will tell you what to do with the lid, what to do with the cup, what to do with the label. Nobody realizes that it's a three-step process. It is not just throw the whole thing into plastic because the lid is aluminum. It is not plastic, right? So you need to know. So this is something that as a company, we want to introduce, and hopefully other manufacturers will also come and participate in this exercise, and hopefully we can make a difference. And to be honest, it's printed on the pack, so there's no additional cost. The cost was in developing and aligning what we wanted to do. So there are simple ways that we can educate consumers and hopefully support it with some digital messaging and things like that. And hopefully what we do can then be a benchmark for other companies to follow suit. Yeah.
I really appreciate this initiative, and I think it's really great, especially, and it will cover the large multinational companies for sure, because they've been, or we saw that they're quite collaborative in these efforts and well coordinated. But in Malaysia, we have lots of very small businesses that also bring packaging on the market, and I think unless there is, and I think without a standardized government regulation that maybe picks up on the hints that you large multinational companies give, without these standards, that would be applicable to all companies, given by the government, we won't solve the problem for the entire country of Malaysia, unfortunately. And coming from the EU, I've been seeing that the EU typically takes over these tasks. It could be sometimes a bit too much of regulation, but in general, I think it makes a lot of sense that the government also supports this.
When I was studying in Japan, they have one symbol that says that this plastic has to go into which garbage bag and what date. So there's one symbol that we know that if this one, then we have to separate, like lotte, for example, chocolate, there's a box and inside is plastic. So we know that the plastic only has that symbol that has to go to a certain garbage. And I think your comment is correct. Then we can have, because in our Malaysian plastic bag, we have KPKT, we also have NGOs and also brand owners. So maybe in that platform, we can also decide on the, maybe we can follow your symbol and we can also
Standardize.
Yeah, standardize to all the brand owners. And the thing that we have to do is to educate people. That's the most important, to follow that this kind of thing can be recyclable and so on.
What is great, I'm hearing about the big brand owners are coming together to spearhead this whole thing. But we know in Malaysia that 85% to 90% of our industries are SMEs. And they are the one who will be the last one on board. So how do we get the SMEs to be on board? And we know that in Malaysia, it's really about, if I'm not forced to do it, I'll not do it. So if it's not mandatory, they will not be part of it. So if it's not going to be a mandatory thing, how do we get SMEs to be on board?
I think we haven't think of that yet. I think we start with the big company first. Then only we will rope in like MITI and Ministry of Entrepreneurial Development to be in the pack later on, and to educate or to tell the small industry that they have to do that, to do the same. Because in other countries, I think every type of products they have that. Not only the big, not only the multinational company, but also the small.
Could this be also could be part of what MPMA could do?
Yes, certainly, because I would say that based on the 80-20 rule, if you get the 20% of the people who put out all the plastic packaging or plastic component out in the market, even if they are just the 20%, they already solved 80% of the problem. And then, yeah, just like what you say, the MPMA plays an important role here, because if the government, doesn't step in, then at least we have to take that voluntary action to tell our members. With SME, they will be buying plastics from a plastics producer, right? And the plastic producer would be our member. So we will be pushing our member to take this effort to advise if we ever come up with this standardized recycling label, So we should market ourselves among this group of stakeholders. We shouldn't need to wait for the government to say something or to mandate, because once the government mandate, they might come up with something that is not relevant at all, because they don't know our industry better than we. And the recyclers, so the recyclers need to know what label are you going to put, because after all, they are the one who is going to see the label, not us, right? So yes, I think MPMA can play an active role in making sure that everybody in the loop is being informed that this change is coming, and this is how we would increase our collection back.
Yes.
Just a quick thought to add. I think if you can develop a system that you find works better, that people understand it, and that the outcomes are better, and you can get academic validation to show that these outcomes are better and this is good economically, it makes sense to do this, then you can go and lobby for the government to make the change, and then you can get the sticks or the carrots following that. But if you just prove your case, and that'll follow.
Doug, I'd like to pick up something you said just now, that to have a robust recycling community, then you talk about volume and you talk about quality of the material to be recycled. How do we get, those are two opposite things. So it's easier to get the volume, but you might not get the quality. And to get that quality, you might not get that volume. So based on your experience, how do we get to that space?
That's a challenge. Well, I said it in my talk, and I really believe this. Sorting by wet and dry is the most simple thing that the planet can do. And I hate to say it, but I think most governments have got it wrong for many years, decades, which is the multicolored bins. And the reason for that is there's always contamination. And as Hans said, if it is not convenient, the people won't walk 20 meters farther to get to the recycle bin. They'll put their coffee or their food waste in the bin that's meant for recycling, whether it's paper or plastic. And as soon as the recycling systems in most cities receive that and they see that it's contaminated, they don't even spend the time or the effort to pull out the good things. It goes straight to the landfill. And so right at the beginning, we're nullifying the value of our resources, whether it's organic paper or plastic. And if we were able to sort in households simply organic food, wet and the dry, the system in any given city or town that wants to then either hand sort or mechanically sort the dry material would be much more easy to recover for value. And I would love to see some township or city try this out to really see the absolute volume at the beginning will be the same, but it's the way that you can manipulate and recover the hard to get stuff that today just isn't recyclable because the volume's not there to get the entrepreneur to build a machine to be confident that he can feed his machine with 20 tons a day or 3 tons a day of that material. And that's really a social city brand government. We all have to work together to try to maybe change that system and show that it could work. I think we have to think differently on the system.
We have 1 minute to go, so I'd like to give every one of you one sentence. What do we feel about the plastic issue now? Are we positive about it? Are we doing it right already? Or we've got a long way to go? What's your thoughts about that? Can we start from you, Chris?
I think we have a long way to go, but I'm honestly excited and hopeful at the change I've seen over the last year. The movements around the kids around the Fridays around climate change, the Extinction Rebellion, and just what I'm seeing when I'm going to events, there just seems to be a change in attitude. I've been living in Asia for 4.5 years. The first couple of years, it was very different from the way it's been in the last couple of years, where it just seems like people are taking things more seriously, and we're trying to figure things out and go in the right direction instead of trying to convince people that we need to do this. So I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I think Malaysia really has done an amazing job in the last 12 to 18 months. I mean, it woke up, the rest of Asia woke up, but Malaysia has the capacity to not only lead on policies, but also on manufacturing, and the factory of the world doesn't necessarily always have to be China. And a lot of the time, these machines, like even the ash machine, they need to be sized for the communities that they go into, because waste is a localized issue, and you can't have just one big machine to absorb everything. So I think the opportunity is, now you don't have to go into a meeting and explain to people that the birds are getting hurt and there's plastic on the beach. They just immediately start asking, how can we solve this issue and what should we do? So I think that momentum is really going in the right direction now.
I think MPMA-wise, we are happy with the progress, especially the recent Malaysian plastic pact. I think that really makes us see the light at the end of the tunnel, which is the beginning of this whole new collaboration. I hope that moving ahead, we should use less about waiting for the government to do something. We should just do it on our own. Just like Chris say, whether it's a case study or we should just do it, and then from there, we will expand from 1 to 2 to 3, one village, one city at a time, one package at a time.
I'm absolutely positive on this issue, not only because I love my job, but also if you look at back 2-3 years back, and compared to the current situation, we have a completely different landscape. There are more companies, they join together, they launch the alliance, they want to fight this problem. More and more brand owners make a bold commitment, make their packaging recyclable, 100% recyclable, reusable. And many companies like Dow, we are accelerating technology development, innovation to make a plastic easier to recycle. And also more and more governments, like a Malaysia government, are taking the action to develop the right policy to accelerate all those change. But still, we have a long way to go. The problem is a very challenge, and we really need to work together and collaborate with each other so that we can solve it as soon as possible.
Can Puan Hartini be last? Let the rest. You're the government, so you'll be last.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the other speakers that things look hopeful and we start to feel optimistic. I believe there is a huge amount of work ahead of us from everybody who is involved. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard work. It's going to be expensive. But I think as long as we remain committed to do it, we'll find a way. So optimistic, but fully aware that there's a lot of effort that's going to be required.
I'm also optimistic. In general, I'm an optimist, but I think also this issue is something that we can tackle certainly with a lot of work, like all of you guys say. When coming here 3 months ago, I actually thought, to Southeast Asia, I thought this would be an uphill battle and that companies are not really interested in working on this, that governments are actually not so interested in working on this. But meeting all these stakeholders in 6 different countries across Southeast Asia made me really hopeful that everyone wants to contribute to the solution and do something. What I think is important for the future is that we focus really on developing circular economy solutions and make sure that we don't get distracted by solutions that fix or that are short-term fix, like incineration, where you still don't have the circular economy, like biodegradable plastics, which are also difficult to biodegrade or end up as microplastics in the ocean still, rather than in the circular economy. So we really need to make sure that we focus on the right action and do this in a targeted way.
For Hartini, so the government has the last say.
Maybe this is just my point of view. So I think we have long way to go, especially when we look at many technologies, which is pyrolysis, catalytic pyrolysis, hydrogen and everything, but all the technology needs the material to be homogeneous, clean and everything. So we can talk about circular economy, but if we don't segregate waste at source properly, then it will go nowhere. That's just, thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we give a round of applause to the panelists, please? I think coming out from here, we've got a very optimistic, positive outcome from here, and I think that's one win at a time. Thank you very much, panelists. With that, can I hand over?
Yes, but we're not going to let you go yet. I believe we've got some questions for the panelists, which will be coming on screen. Perhaps we can post the questions now.
Is there a question?
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So many questions.
I didn't realize that there was a Q&A.
All right.
Okay, in light of what was shared, trash to ash can be done to provide a sustainable solution for the use of plastic. Can the ash be a solution? I think you just answered that, didn't you?
Yeah, I actually can take this. I was alluding to this, and I'm aware that pyrolysis can also be used to create polymers or monomers, again, correct me if I'm wrong, which can be reintroduced into the circular economy to produce new plastics rather than ending up as ash. So, and that would help us prevent that we wouldn't need to extract new crude from the ground anymore. We would recycle and recycle.
So I think that answers for question 1 and 2.
I would say so.
Yeah. So question 3, I think that what are your takes on the ashes? I think that has been addressed also by, so can we take the next one? It seems Malaysia is pointed out as not having the capacity to recycle. What are we doing to heighten that in the nearest future? Don't we have the capacity to recycle? Puan Hartini. Okay, you want to try that, dog?
Throw whether it's Malaysia or not, I think we as the world need to be careful about the Basel Convention, which has most environmentalists and countries very celebratorily talking about. The reason that we have to be careful is because in a circular economy, the real question needs to be, is it domestic circular, 100%, or globally circular? And if we force all countries to have their own domestic circular economy by themselves, it will be almost impossible. And so if you do not allow the trade of commodities, which plastic is, as a valuable resource to the countries that can absorb it and have the facility to manufacture recycled content, then you're putting an onus on a lot of small countries who are getting imported products to then deal with all their stuff, which they don't have the capacity to do. And when you block the imports of good quality product, you kill the recycling industry in that country, which is happening in Malaysia. So contrary to a lot of belief, if you don't let the stuff come in, the guys who know how to do it will go out of business. And then you lose the chance to have that recycling industry developed in that country that can handle it. So I think that's a word of caution.
So it's not just the capacity.
It's well, you need the capacity, the knowledge, and the scale, and sometimes they have to augment that with materials that are from other countries that have, of course, they should be processed and controlled in their quality, but they shouldn't just be banned because it is plastic. Otherwise, the whole world will have a real challenge moving it around, which today it's hard to do. And if you're a brand and you want to add 20% recycled content and you make your products in China or Malaysia, you can't get 20% recycled content into your product because the recycling system isn't here to fulfill your supply chain.
Okay, there's two things I want to clarify. One, the products, the so-called the plastic waste that is coming to Malaysia. Maybe if you are not in the plastic industries or related, you might not know. If you look at if you just read the newspaper, you will visualize it's just garbage that's coming in, which is true. There are people who have taken advantage of that and just bring in garbages. So now, MPMA will never allow that to happen, okay? But the recycling business in Malaysia, the recycling industries in Malaysia has been around for a long time. And they have been importing plastic waste. But this plastic waste, which has been imported for recycling, is not garbage, it's not contaminated plastics. These are good quality, sorted, relatively clean plastic waste that can be further processed and then turned into resin. And most of these resins are then exported, recycled resins are then exported out. So the plastics recyclers industry in Malaysia actually is an important component in our economy, right? So that's the thing. So yeah.
It seems that Malaysia is pointed out as not having question to Mestek, when is Ministry going to extend its zero single use to cover bottle, water, plastic cutlery, plastic containers? I think it's already in the blueprint. Yeah, these are all already very explicitly stated in the blueprint. What is Nestle doing in terms of changing its packaging to less plastic? I think you have answered that. Asked and answered. So I don't think there's any other question that we need to address here. All been answered. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Puan Sri. May I have Puan Sri? Oh, yes,
can I
you want to say
one
something?
clarification first, sorry.
Right.
Okay.
The question says that, the question asks when is Mestek going to ban the plastic bottles? Actually, the plastic bottles is the most recycled in Malaysia and is most needed, right? If this plastic bottle is banned, I think maybe easily 80% of the recyclers would be gone. So plastic PET bottles, your water bottle especially, it's highly in demand. So please, segregate that, put it in the plastic. You can put it outside together with your garbage, but just separate it because the Malaysian recyclers truly need that. And we have a huge market, we have a huge demand for that, and it's still not enough. Right, thank you.
Thanks for the clarification. Oh, yes, Puan
I can
Hartini.
add something. It is very difficult to replace the PET bottle actually because it is transparent, it is easy. So that is the most challenging because if you want to replace it with, like for example, polyhydroxyalkanoate, it's not going to be as transparent as the plastic bottle now. So that's a challenge. Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody wants to add something?
So can we close the session?
May we?
It's 5 o'clock. We've run out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. A big hand for our panelists and our moderator, Puan Sri. May I invite all of you for a group photo right in front over here, please? Now, from that panel session, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to just about the end. Not exactly the end yet, because at this point, it's my pleasure to invite Daniel Krohn of Sustainable Brands US, is the international partnerships, in charge of international partnerships, for his closing remarks and to wrap up this. And then right after that, we've got some very important announcements with you. But right now, please welcome Daniel Krohn, everybody.
I know it's been a long day. It's been a long 2 days for all of us, and so I won't take too much time. We've heard a lot of great speakers over the past 2 days. They've shared a lot of information about sustainability, but they've also provided a lot of opportunities for you guys to take back home into your organizations and communities, tools and resources that you can utilize that will help you address the challenges that we face. My challenge to all of you as you go back home is, what are you going to do with all of this? What are you going to do with this information, these tools, these resources? How are you going to apply this knowledge, these tools? But I also offer some words of encouragement. After my talk today, we had a gentleman talk about leadership. And I think all of you need to go home and you need to take on that role as a leader in your community and your organization. We need everybody like you who's here today to take on that role, to lead others in your organizations and communities and harness their energy towards making a better future. So go home, be a leader, because that's what the world needs. And I want to thank all of you for coming. It's been a great opportunity for me to listen to all of the great things that everybody's doing here in Malaysia and in Southeast Asia. And hopefully I can come back again next year and see the progress that we've made and to have lots of great conversations with all of you guys next year. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Daniel Krohn, Sustainable Brands US. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the conclusion of our two-day conference for Sustainable Brands 2019 Kuala Lumpur. We hope you've had 2 days of very informative and motivating and hopefully inspiring for some of you. And I must say on behalf of the conference that we certainly look forward to you doing and creating change within your own organizations.